Mike's good? All right. Good evening. I would like to call to order this July 26, 2022 business meeting. Madam Treasurer, may we have a roll call, please?
President Smith,
Present.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Present.
Mr. Sampson,
Present.
Ms. Wicani,
Present.
Dr. Pickett,
Dr. Pickett will be joining us. She called and let me know what was going on, and we'll let the record reflect when she shows up.
Dr. Goodwin,
Here.
Mr. Lacy.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. May we now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to say we start this meeting off with a few presentations. And the first is a special presentation by our state's auditor's office. Dr. Lally, if you could get us rolling.
Okay, I'd like to welcome you to the podium, so if you want to take over. I thought he was going to say treasurer, but he said me, so.
Well, fantastic. Well, it is definitely my honor to be here today on behalf of Auditor State Keith Faber to present the Dayton City School District with the Auditor State Award with Distinction. And it's kind of a little bit special for me, too. Many of you may not know, but I was a Dayton Public School graduate 40 years ago, so at Wilbur Wright High School, so yeah. So I'm really excited to be here on this behalf. This puts the City of Dayton School District in a very select group. The Auditor State's Office audits nearly 6,000 entities, and only about 4% are even eligible for this award. The Auditor State Award with Distinction is presented to local governments and school districts upon the completion of a financial audit that meet the following criteria of a clean audit report. I'm going to read through this so you know what it took to make all this happen. The entity must file the financial report with the Auditor State's Office by the statutory due date without extension on a GAAP accounting basis and prepare a CAFR, which is a comprehensive annual financial report. The audit report cannot contain any findings for recovery, any material citations, any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and any uniform guidance or single audit findings or any questioned costs. The entity's management letter must contain no comments related to any ethics referrals, any questioned costs less than a threshold per uniform guidance, any lack of annual financial report submissions, any bank reconciliation issues, a failure to obtain a timely single audit in accordance with uniform guidance, any findings for recovery, or any public meetings or public records issues. And the entity shall have no other financial concerns. This award represents the hard work of all your district employees here, and everybody who work each day, to attain accounting excellence. I want to recognize the board members, the superintendent, and everyone that's done an outstanding job watching over every dollar here at the Dayton City School District. But I specifically would like to recognize your treasurer. And Hewitt, if you'd like to come down here, that would be great. Yeah.
If the board could join Treasurer Braha as well.
All right, fantastic. Well, I specifically would like to recognize your treasurer here for her commitment for her exceptional commitment to fiscal integrity. Congratulations, Sheila. On behalf of Ohio Auditor State Keith Faber, I would like to present the Ohio Auditor State Award with distinction to the Dayton City School District.
Yeah. I'm very, very okay. I'm very proud to receive this honor. This honor didn't come from me only. It came from the support of the board, superintendent, and the whole district. But a manager is as good as his or her teams. So my team, here they are the ones, they deserve this award. They work day and night to get this award and to save the district. So I would like to recognize Ahmed Gattem to come with us. Okay. Amber Sweeney, she is our executive director. Diane Mendenhall. Larry Wackley. Kelly Wilson. Thank you so much. And also, I would like to thank the state auditors for recognizing our work. Thank you.
Want me to hop in here with her?
We have another presentation that we'd like to do at this time. Dr. Lally.
On behalf of the Board of Education and the administrative team in the Dayton Public Schools, we'd like to present you with a plaque, Mr. Shirley. And the plaque says, "The Superintendent and Board of Education of Dayton Public Schools would like to thank you for your 34 years of service to our staff, students, and parents. Your input as an electronics equipment specialist has ensured that our sound equipment throughout the district has been installed and maintained to the highest quality. In addition, You've helped the community to remain informed and involved in the meetings of the Board of Education. We wish you well as you enter retirement and begin your next chapter of life. Congratulations. And I personally want to thank you for always being there, because you're there always for anything that we need, and it'll be a hard position, hard person to replace. So thank you.
Did we want to do another group picture? Or? Yeah.
All right. Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Shirley on his dedication to the district, and we wish you well in your next phase of life, sir. Thank you. Next, we have a update on the Welcome Stadium project. Dr. Lally, could you introduce the team here to give us the update?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Curtis Ellswick from Skanska. He has the bulk of the presentation, and then as you turn it over, if you'll just introduce the next person, okay? Thank you.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Smith, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and give an update on the exciting Welcome Stadium project. I have with me Chuck Kelly. He's a senior project manager with Skanska, and he's going to assist me through our presentation. He's there pretty much every day looking out for your interest. He's your eyes and ears. But I wanted to focus initially on the first slide here, which is currently your master plan and really what is your vision for what Welcome Stadium is going to be. As you can see in the graphic there, you got a new field turf, you got a new track, you got new long jump, you've got new LED lighting, which will be installed here pretty soon. You have a new ADA accessible press box on the home side. You have up on the top left, you have a new field house facility. And in the bottom with the blue roof is a new maintenance facility, so we can pull some of the maintenance functions out of the stadium and give them their own space. All new painting, new graphics. There's a new practice field, a place for discus, lacrosse, other sports can play. So it's a pretty spectacular goal that you have there, and we're making good progress towards that. And a new scoreboard, forgot that. Just a quick update on where we're at. We're in what we call Phase 1A, which is the summer 22 phase of work, our initial scope of work. And we have removed, if you've been by there, if you've driven up 75 and looked over, you can already tell the stadium looks different. Or if you've peeked in or drove right around it. But the existing track has been removed, the existing turf has been removed. We have prepped for the new track and the new turf. the concrete curb that goes around the stadium between that and the turf and the field has been installed. Underground conduit has been installed for electrical boxes and other utilities. The turf is actually installed. They are out there right now cutting in the lettering in the end zones and some of the lettering on the field, so that looks a lot different. Walls for the long jump pits have been installed. We are installing new ADA accessible seating at the concourses, so at the bottom of the bleachers, there's going to be new platforms and ramps that are going to be installed, so the foundations for those have already been installed at this point. There's light structures that hold up the lighting for the stadium have all been painted, so if you go by there now, they're all black and looks really fantastic. Goalposts are showing up this week. One's here, one shows up, I think, Chuck, Thursday, supposed to be here, so the goalposts will be on site. Those will be installed here shortly. And then we will start paving the track here pretty soon. While all that work is going on concurrently, we've been planning for the next phases of work, which is we've had a lot of meetings. We've been touring the concourse inside the stadium, figuring out what that scope of work is going to be, having master plan meetings. And the design team is off and running, and they are designing what we mentioned earlier, the press box, the field house, the maintenance building, the work we're going to do inside of the concourses, in the locker rooms, in the concessions area, and what that's going to look like. In the bottom, you can see the turf being removed and rolled up, and that's just in the bottom right of some of the meetings we've had on site. That's actually in the concession area. With the work finally progressing here, we've are paying close attention and tracking our inclusion and how we're doing towards our goal. So currently, the value of the work that's being put in place by the Shook MSA team is about $4.9 million. They have a goal overall of all the work that they're going to do of 20%. We are an EDBE goal. We're currently at 7.5% of that, which is about $370,000. We're at 30% for the Montgomery County Business Enterprise goal, and we're at 49% for the local business enterprise goal. The thing here, this is just the very first piece of work. This is actually the smallest piece of work that we're doing in the stadium. So this is the lights, the bleachers, the painting, and so there's a lot more work to do, the mechanical, electrical, the plumbing, and all the new facilities. So I think once we get into the next phase, whatever that's called, phase B, 1B or 2, whatever we're going to end up calling it, you're going to see a significant change in where we're going to be in terms of reaching and exceeding those goals. Some pictures. These are some of Chuck's pictures, but I get to talk to you about it. But you can see our first thing we did was the Moats group removed the track. That's the top left picture there. Then they hauled all that away. We were actually hoping that would be a pretty easy process. It was not. They had to bring in special equipment. We've had to do a lot of prep work for the new asphalt that's going to go on the track. But they got it done. Of course, you all had the groundbreaking ceremony not too long ago, which was a fantastic event. Dr. Lawley picked the weather. She did good on that. But you had a great turnout, some great speakers. That was the best groundbreaking I've ever been to. Next, please. Some more pictures. So we've removed the existing goalposts. The foundations for those are, and those new goalposts are getting ready to be installed, being replaced. In the top right, that we had to do some grading work in what they call the D zones outside of the end zones there. The one thing we uncovered there is we recovered some bad drainage, and so we're in the process of replacing that so we avoid future problems. The drainage pipe, some of that is on site being installed now. You can see what it's like to remove some of the turf, which has all been removed. It's off-site, it's gone. You'll never see it again. The new curb that's going in between the track and the field. This is where they bored under the field to put in the electrical conduit and things that go from one side to the other, the electrical boxes. I showed you a picture of the turf being removed. And then this is a progress photo when they were painting the light structures, which is, they actually had to, it was kind of tricky on windy days. So they had to stop, wait for the wind to stop, come back, paint the poles, but they're all painted now. So if you go by, you can see what that looks like. It looks fantastic. Some of the group meetings we've been having, we've had a lot of those, talking about what, the next scopes of work. Painting, this was done actually a few days ago, so what is currently red is either going to be blue or gray. It actually looks different than that picture already, so If you go, please go by and take a look, but it looks like a totally different stadium right at this point. And like I mentioned over there is where they poured the foundations for the new ADA platforms and ramps. Those are already there, just waiting on the structures to show up to be installed. And then what's coming up, I mentioned they're out there right now cutting in the lettering on the field. That's going in. The sand that you see there, it's on site in those big bags. That's actually the sand and the rubber granules that'll go on the field. That'll be start being installed, I think, Chuck, next week. That's what they're targeting for that. New drainage is going in. The paving, if you go out there now, you know, it looks pretty rough, the track area, but that'll actually, they'll start paving that pretty soon. And then here shortly thereafter, they'll put the track surface on that. So that's when it'll really look different, when that track is in with the colors that you have. But that's where we're at. The new stadium lights are on order. They should be here pretty soon. We don't have a drop dead date, but they're going to be here, and you'll start seeing those new LED lights, which is going to be a totally different look to that stadium when those lights come on from what you have right now, too. So a lot of good progress. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I appreciate the report, and we appreciate the update with all the work that's been going on. I know I've gone by, and you can really see just the effort that's going into it. And so day by day, I see it and I appreciate it. Before I kick it off to the board, I did have a couple of questions. One, do we have any date on, I know on the rendering we have the lettering on the outside of the stadium. Do we have any updates on when we're expecting to have those in?
You're talking about the large illuminated
Right.
signs? I don't know if we've had a date. We don't have a date yet.
Okay.
We're still working to nail that down.
Okay.
You know, the thing right now in this market is dates are fluctuating all over the place, and it's hard to really,
Mhm.
until they say, okay, it's on the truck.
Right.
You don't know.
Then another one, and it may be for Dr. Lally. I know when we took the track away at the groundbreaking, there were some people that were, wondering what we were gonna do with it, if we could, if it would be available for some people who wanted a souvenir, things like that. That's Dr. Lally, or you guys, do we have an update on how that's going?
We actually have some of the turf stored. We won't disclose the location. Someone might want to, put it in their yard or something. But seriously, we have some of the turf stored that we will begin to slice up at some point in time and sell as souvenirs for people, keepsakes for people. So we do have some stored, and we'll be happy to start that process whenever we're closer to the beginning of or the middle of the season, maybe. We'll have to see what works best, I think.
She won't even tell us where it's at.
And then lastly, I know one of the things that in talking to community members, especially our elderly community members and people with accessibility needs, two of the things that were mentioned were the need for more ADA compliant seating, and then also one of the things that came out was how sometimes it can be difficult getting up and down the steps. And I know you talked about the platform for the ADA compliant seating. Has there been anything done around, I know we had talked about putting railing in the aisles. Is there any updates on that?
Yeah, they're actually prepping for that railing as we speak. And so if you go over there now, you'll see bleachers being replaced and some of the railing, actually some of the railing that's there, it's already painted, it's black, it's all new colors. But yeah, I don't know if we have a date for the handrails that go up the center yet. It's kind of like some of the other things that we'll give you a date as soon as we know the date, but there will be more new railing and wider aisles.
Okay,
Allow accessibility.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions? Dr. Goodwin?
Yes. My first one's on the inclusion goals. These look really good, and I'm just gonna request to kind of see a breakdown of who those companies are
Okay.
that are achieving these goals. And then my second, that was a statement. My second question is, when will our students be able to play on the field?
They're going to be playing their first football game. It's scheduled, so
That's
that
good,
everything will be
yeah.
in place for them to do that.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
you,
And just, to give what that stadium's gonna look like, so these zones where we had to replace the drainage, one of those, we won't be able to pave that, and it won't be the final product. So it won't be in its final state in one of those areas, but that's not gonna prevent you from having the football game. And then the first game, the track will be in, but the track surface, because the track has to sit for 14 to 21 days before you put the surface on, so I think the track will be there. We won't have the surface on until probably the second football game is what we're shooting for.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Any other questions? Ms. Witt Gagne?
I don't have a question, but just, it's so exciting. I mean, I would encourage everybody to drive by. The transformation, I think, already is so astounding. And we had our team meeting or group meeting last week and went to the field. And I drive by personally. It's my daily vacation. I get to go by it. And it's really exciting. So I would invite all of our community to drive by and take a look. It's going to be, and so I got to walk on the field too, which I'm not a football player. I don't know if you all knew that or not, but I'm not a football player. But we walked on the football field, and the sense of just pride and excitement that you felt about the project. So I'm so excited for our kids to be able to play football on this field this year. We're going to have a great year. So thank you for your update and for the hard work. So appreciate you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Vice President Reiner?
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I wanted to express my thanks as well. And this looks really good. I'm really excited for our kids to play on it. So I just ran on a football track for the first time a week and a half ago. It was super fun, and I would like to invite my fellow board members when it's done. Perhaps Board Member Lacey, who's also a runner, we could run down the football field together. I'm really excited about it. It was amazing. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? That's it. I do want to add in, I appreciate the work around, like I said, what's coming on with the other field as well, with the ability to do the throws, and then even looking forward and putting out the ability to put lacrosse lines and things like that. So our side lacrosse could someday be grown there if we want to go there, and the work to put the soccer lines and everything there. So it's really a neat project. And I will share with the community as well, we've also had people come down from the state as well to talk to us. So, I mean, this project is really getting momentum around the state, and people are seeing what's coming on. We've had people reaching out about possible state meets and state tournament games possibly coming in the district, which then also brings revenue to our district as well. We've had people talking about nationwide relays and regional things there. And I don't think you mentioned it, with some of the new additions, we're also having the ability to have college events there as well. So not only just with UD, who has been playing football there, but other colleges of different levels would have the opportunity to not only do football, but track and field as well, other sports. So it's really a forward-facing project to do some things for our children, and then the opportunity to do some things for the greater community at large, but then also brings revenue and opportunities for our children here in Dayton. So we appreciate the work and appreciate the update, and look forward to hearing more in the future, and looking forward to those first games of the season.
Sounds great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Do we have any bargaining units present? I see no bargaining units. Next, we will have hearing from the public. Just want to put some of our guidelines out as well. Before, complete a request form prior to the hearing of the public and submit it to our public information officer. When called upon, identify yourself, state name and address as well. Electronic submissions will only be used during remote meetings. If a non-English speaker is needed, we will provide an interpreter, and time may be extended due to the interpreter speaking. Limit remarks to 3 minutes, and if you have any materials to distribute, please hand them to the treasurer as you come up. Madam Treasurer, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Yes. Jamie Ryan.
Jamie Ryan, 2137 East 5th Street. You should come by my house. It's getting painted. It's beautiful. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Lally. As most of you know, I attended the board review session last week and appreciated both the updates on the newcomer school and transportation. I especially enjoyed the thoughtful questions and concerns from the board. I thought it was appropriate that the board chided transportation about not seeking input from parents regarding start times. It was emphasized that seeking input from stakeholders is a matter of courtesy, and it also improves communication and builds trust. It is in that vein that I want to address recent actions of the board. It is apparent that matters that should have been discussed publicly by the board were, in fact, discussed privately during executive sessions. I'm specifically referring to the discussion about the school business manager position. It has been well documented by a former board member that the discussion and deliberation of such a position should only be conducted in an open meeting. By not conducting affairs appropriately and not including the public and abiding by the sunshine laws, you continue to hurt the reputation of the district, even if what you intend is for the good of the district. There was a comment made last week at the review session about the commitment to keep the newcomer school open for neighborhood students. I ask, what about the commitment of the board to proper and legal procedures and meetings? It's disheartening to bear witness to this behavior. Holding open meetings to discuss and deliberate actions that affect the future of our district is a matter of courtesy, and it also improves communication and improves trust. I'm here to hold you accountable for your actions in the same way you are holding the employees of this district accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Do we have any other speakers, Madam Treasurer?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Dr. Lally, your recommendations, please.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the consultant contracts listed on the agenda.
Mr. President, if I may, before we start there.
Yes, sir.
So I do have a question about recommendations. Under the review session, there were a few items that didn't transfer over to the recommendations, and just wanted to know if that was a mistake. The MOUs for neighborhood school centers, the resolution for transportation parent reimbursement, and the resolution for administrator salary scale. Those three did not transfer over from the review session. All right, thank you so much. It'll get there by the time we get to the bottom. Yep.
Any other questions, Mr. Sampson?
No, sir, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Lally?
I'd like to recommend the approval of the consultant contract listed on the agenda.
I move that we accept Superintendent Recommendation A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? No? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes?
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
Thank you. May we have your next recommendation, Dr. Lally?
Recommend approval of the contracts that are listed on the agenda. There are several there. Several of them are for the neighborhood school centers, and some of them are pertaining to our non-public schools.
Okay. Do we have any questions about any of the contracts? Dr. Goodwin?
On the iVideo Technologies contract, will that streaming service, will it also be streamed through our website, or do you have to have Spectrum to be able to see it?
I'll ask Ms. Kincaid to come forward.
That contract allows us to stream to Spectrum on TV and also to the on-demand website, so you can watch DPS TV on demand live online. So that also allows us to do that.
Mr. Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to know, is it appropriate? I would like to have a discussion about neighborhood school centers. I would like to make a recommendation. Is it appropriate to do this right here, or do I pull them and then have a discussion?
Well, we haven't actually put a motion out for them, so you can have that discussion.
All right, I would like to have the board consider a recommendation that we increase our resources from 50,000 to 65,000. However, I do want to get the treasurer's input to see how that affects. And the rationale is the cost of living increase. I think our neighborhood school centers have been receiving $50,000 since the inception of NSCs. And also, I think it is a burden for some of our smaller nonprofits and organizations because out of this $50,000, I believe that they pay for the benefits, the insurance of those employees. So I would like for us to consider in a conversation about going from 50 to 65,000, after the treasurer gives input on what an additional $105,000 commitment would do to the district.
Okay, Madam Treasurer, what would you say about what timeline that would take for you to have those answers that Board Member Sampson is seeking?
I would like to calculate and see the effect, but what I think is 105,000 is not going to be, since our budget is very high, it's not going to affect by that much. The increase is not going to be that much, but I would like to calculate and let you know.
Okay. Then I would have a follow-up question, and it may be for Dr. Lally or the treasurer. With what Board Member Sampson is asking, if the board were to make a vote today, would we have to go back and change the vote, or would we be able to add additional funds onto what we're giving to our neighborhood school centers?
On this particular one with the contracts, you can just add additional money onto it. The MOU, however, would have to be changed because it specifies $50,000 each.
Okay.
Yeah, and the board has to approve the increase.
Okay. Dr. Goodwin?
Board Member Sampson, with the additional 15,000 to each school, you have some thoughts around where that would go into? Is it like for transportation? Is it increase in personnel? Or is it just a general pot from them to be able to pull over? Just your thoughts about what the additional 15,000 is going to assist with.
So I'll give my shot, and then I'm gonna digress to Dr. Lally. But the $50,000 that we contribute is for the resources to employ a family resource coordinator. So it's all for the hiring of one person to do those resources, bridging the gap, bringing in community resources into the school, the programming. So it is strictly for personnel of one person.
Okay, so it'd just be to increase their salary from 50 to about 65 or 60.
Yes, to help with the cost of.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Yep.
That's all I needed.
And I think that's right, Dr. Lally.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions with that or comments, Mr. Sampson?
No, sir.
Appreciate that. Any other questions or comments on contracts? If none, then I move to accept Superintendent Recommendation B.
I'll second the motion. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on the motion? Not, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes?
Ms. Wigani,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses. Motion carries. Dr. Lally, your next recommendation, please.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the Human Resources agenda items.
Okay. Any questions on human resources? Dr. Goodwin?
There was one, it was a cheerleader that was listed, a cheerleader coach that was listed twice, and I just had a question of why their contract overlapped. I'm trying to find it. I think it was at Dunbar.
Chief Harmon, you're indicating that it might be 2 seasons, that's why they overlap, summer.
Yeah,
And then
108, 109.
Overlapping seasons is what they are indicating.
Okay.
Any other questions on HR? I did have a question, especially with the number of people, seeing that we're seeing leaving the district. It is a high number. And my question is, and I know we've asked it a few times, and just kind of, even if it's an update or new ideas, new things that are coming out. One, what are we doing now to, I know we talked about getting those exit surveys. How are we then utilizing that? Are we putting that in place in different procedures? Is it creating different trainings? Is it doing things around, just how are we using that data? And then what are some of the other things that we're doing to increase teacher retention? And on top of that, what are we doing then also, knowing that we'll be filling these positions what will we be doing to lift up our new employees coming in? How are we going to train them? How are we giving them the guidance that they need as new teachers coming into the district to fill some of these spots?
Chief Harmon?
President Smith, I may ask you to repeat some of those parts of the question, but
No problem.
I know one of the training items that we put in place, and I say we, it's really OEC specifically, they are training a bunch of new long-term subs, which the whole long-term sub idea was a brand new thing last year. And you'll see on the agenda today that a bunch of long-term subs are coming back for year 2, which is a blessing for us, and we're very thankful to them for doing so. That being said, the Office of Exceptional Children are doing some significant training at the beginning of the year for those individuals for how to better work and provide services to students with disabilities. So that's a training that is going to be in place that did not exist before as far as training. And then of course we have a lot of the mentor programs that are already in place for new staff, and if Dr. Lally wants to speak to any of that as well, certainly she can expand upon that. I do want to give an update on our numbers, and I want to say, I'm proud of the team, the HR team. Just in the last week since our review session, there have been 40 additional staff members that are in the last week that are reducing that number down. And then looking year over year, at the end of July in 21, we had 173 vacancies. 1 year later, we have 174 vacancies. So that does, you're right that there have been a number of people that have left, and that's across, I should say that's across all employees, that's not teachers only. But we are essentially exactly where we were last year, and the numbers keep moving in the right direction. So I know of at least 12 offers that went out today, so we'll continue to hire. I will say it's very likely that the next board meeting, that review session, I'm going to ask that you hire at that board meeting, but take action instead of waiting to the business meeting for that same exact reason, so we can get people in. But the numbers are moving in the right direction, and that's credit to the whole HR team, where everybody's jumping in and doing interviews, where the work changes over the course of the year. So an HR partner during the year who might be working with buildings and with teachers and with principals, everybody's doing interviews right now. So we specifically, a couple things I want to run through. Art, we're down 4 positions. We've filled 4 positions since the last week ago. ESSER teachers, we've closed that down to 4 remaining open ESSER teachers. That's down from last week. Intervention specialists, down 20 since last week. I will say that the majority of those are long-term subs, just to be very clear. So that's that training I spoke about right off the bat. We do have paraprofessionals. We're up a few paraprofessionals since last week, so the folks that have left us, there are 8 currently open paraprofessional positions. There are 54 teaching positions remaining open. That's down 16 in the last week. CTE teachers were down 2 from last week. When I say down, I mean moving in the right direction, more positions filled. I think those are the kind of the most important ones that you would want to hear about. And then there was a data request from a board member, maybe it was Mr. Sampson, yes. There was a request for how many, do you want me to run through that at all?
If you like, that's fine.
I shared that on with Dr. Lally, and I think she can forward it on to you if she hasn't already as well. But there was some requests for, kind of where are our teachers in their career. So the first question was, how many teaching staff are new this year? The number for that is 120. How many teachers are there that are total in the district? That's 934. How many teachers have been here less than a year? So the way we looked for that data was if you were hired after the first day of school last year, you're not yet a whole year, 250. How many teachers have been here less than 5 years? That does not include those not yet 1-year people, so that's 195. Teachers who have been here for 5 to 10 years, 221. Teachers who have been here for 10 to 15 years, 78. Teachers who have been here for 15 to 20 years, 72. And teachers who have been in a district for more than 20 years, 118. And again, I think Dr. Lally either has or will send that on to you if you want to see that in writing as well. President Smith, is there any further clarification you want?
The other question was about how are we utilizing the data that is coming from these exit surveys from people that are leaving the district?
Yeah.
How are we then taking what they're telling us and then implementing it in a way where we can kind of stop that from continuing, some of the things that they're letting us know?
I know of one thing, and then Dr. Lally may share something else as well. Not that there's only one thing. We did share that information with the chiefs, the academic chiefs, and they have just had meetings with principals. And so they're sharing that feedback as a generalization to principals of here's kind of the categories of people leaving for job satisfaction, or they moved out of state, or kind of the categorical reasons as to why people are leaving, so that they can have discussions at the elementary level and secondary level, specifically what are the trends in any particular area. So that is, I know, something that is being discussed with principals and what they might be doing to continue to recruit the people who are already working for you, retain the people.
That's what I was going to indicate, that we had the retreats last week and took a look at all the themes of why people said they were leaving. A lot of times people leave because they're going to another school district, moving out of state or out of the city, something like that. But on the ones that were more pertinent to job satisfaction, those were actually talked about by the chiefs. And we'll continue to have that conversation as the year goes on to make sure that we're working with our staff and making sure that there's a higher level of job satisfaction. So when we see those exit surveys, it won't be about the job itself. It'll be because of reasons that my family's leaving or things like that.
I think it's also just worth noting, and I know you all know this, but obviously the COVID environment that we've been in the last several years, that's weighed on the teaching profession. That is not a DPS phenomenon. You see teacher shortages across the nation, and certainly that's not an excuse, but it's relevant, and we hope that most of that is maybe behind us, and that teachers can feel like we're getting back to what education is supposed to look like, and that they kind of get back into the habit of what education is every day, and that's a more and more successful enterprise every single day. So, and kudos to the teachers who've made it through all that and continue to persevere.
Thank you. Anyone else for Chief Harmon? Dr. Goodwin, and then Mr. Sampson.
In regard to our long-term subs, did they see any increase, individuals that return, and how competitive are we with our neighboring areas?
I would say competitively, we're very, very competitive. The nature, the process of how we do long-term subs here, there's a kind of an incentive built into it, because some of those folks are in the process of getting licensed, or they might not have been when we first connected with them, and we've now got them in the process of getting fully licensed, and they're gonna, at some point, and some of them have, moved from long-term sub to, I don't know what you call it, full staff member. That's not really the right wording, but no longer a long-term sub and just a regular DEA bargaining unit member. But the motivation to move, to finalize and get your license and to move into the bargaining unit is that you get to move up on the salary schedule if you have done so. If you have not done so, long-term subs are paid at step one. We do honor their education degree. So if you have a master's degree versus a bachelor's degree, those two people are not necessarily paid the same, but they remain at step one as long as they are a long-term sub. Where we're very, very competitive, if you look at the salary schedule of what a first year, even its bachelor degree teacher is paid, that is significantly above what just a sub who's earning like $100 or $125 a day, $150 a day. It's a very, very significant difference in benefit to the employee.
So they stay at step one no matter the longevity with us?
As long as they are a long-term sub, because they're not fully licensed as a regular teacher until they get, and again, a number of them have done so and are doing so. But yes, they stay at step one, as long as they're a long-term sub. And then you'll see some that changed, say change of contract was long-term sub, now is bachelor step whatever. That happens.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Harmon, first, let me say thank you for the data.
Very welcome.
Because we strive to be a data-driven district, and I try not to ask for a lot of data, but I appreciate it. The question that I have is because we had a significant amount of resignations, which we do every year, our district, based on the data that you have shared, 46 to 47% of our district is teachers that have been here less than 5 years. So the question that I have is, what supports do we give for those to try to intentionally work on the retention? For the new teachers, that 120. Dr. Lally, you might be able to answer this as well. Do we do, I know they got a coach, somebody they team up with, a strong educator. Like, do we do 60-day check-ins as a district, executives, administrators, a quarter, second quarter, to try to retain that 120 to go into their second, third, fourth, going into their 15th year? So when we have 47, up to almost 47% of our district that is less than 5 years, what can we do intentionally to work on that retention? I know we're doing things now, but can we do more? What can we do more intentionally to try to make sure we can curb our resignation numbers?
I know that's one of the things that we've worked, and I'm not suggesting we've got this 100% perfectly, because I know we don't, but you know, it's one of the things that we've talked about with partners is continuing to follow up with those individuals who are new to the district, and as you suggested, Mr. Sampson, something along a 30, 60, 90-day check-in, how's things going? You know, sometimes it's personal with the individual. Sometimes it's, you know, as time goes on, checking in with the principal to say, hey, how is that teacher, Dave Harmon, over in such and such a classroom doing? To continue to see what kind of supports they need as well. I'll say that, you know, can we continue to do that better? Of course we can. And I don't know if there's, Dr. Locke, if there's anything you wanted to say beyond that as far as like the coaching and the curriculum teams and all those things. There's a lot of things in support of our staff.
Right, and I would just say that the curriculum team is very supportive there. And then just the fact that there are, in our elementaries where we had 100 new teachers last year in first grade, second grade, third grade, because they were teamed up with, in most cases, with a senior teacher, that seemed to work really well to retain them. I don't believe we lost a lot of the early primary teachers on the ESSER.
No, that's correct, yeah.
And I think part of that was because they did have that team.
Yeah.
So we can look at more of that sort of work together. We have that fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade intervention block that we're putting in, which means that the whole team, fourth grade team, will be working together with the math specialist and with the other people that are available at that time. So that'll build some of that camaraderie as well.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Dr. Lally.
To that point, Dr. Lally, there's only four ESSER teacher openings right now out of the 100 or so that are in the district. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I just have one other thing. And I know we talked about the COVID effect, where it's affected things not only district-wide, but in all kind of other professions. Then there's the other piece of when we see large numbers of people continuing in their teaching profession, but just leaving for other districts. Are we competitive in different phases, you would think, or to your opinion, as far as salary and things like that? And then also, are there things that we could be working on for just the lack of a better word, enjoying the job? Because I know there's people who are leaving and they're retiring completely, but then there are also around that you have people that are just leaving our district to go be somewhere else. So that I would also ask if there's some ways that we can look and just how do we keep our people here, and especially understanding that teaching in the urban environment it's not like a regular job. It's a labor of love, and you have to really go above and beyond the call. So I think, how are we going above and beyond the call to support them and give them their needs too, is just something I want to put out for your team. But I definitely appreciate you giving those updates and letting us know where we are. If there are no other questions for Chief Harmon, I think you are good.
I want to say thank you and congratulations on starting another great year.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions for Dr. Lally on HR? If not, then I move that we accept Superintendent Recommendation C.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions on the motion? There are none. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett. Dr. Pickett is not here. Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Dr. Lally, your next recommendation, please.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the Human Resources DEA after July 10th.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Lally on DEA after July 10th? Not, then I move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
No?
Ms. Reinhardt,
No.
Mr. Sampson,
No.
Ms. Wiegany,
No.
Dr. Goodwin,
No.
Mr. Lacy.
No.
Yes? 5 no, 1 yes.
No,
No, I said no.
Mr. Lacy said no.
No? Okay.
Correct.
I'll let
Okay.
him correct himself.
I
So
started
yes,
to say yes.
0 yeses, 6 noes.
Okay.
Motion does not.
6 no.
Thank you. Dr. Lally, your next recommendation, please.
Next recommendation, I would like to put recommendation E, F, G, H, I, and J together as they are all MOUs with the Cultural Engagement Department and partners that we've had from last year. The first is with Central State, the second is Sinclair, Wilberforce, and then Fifth Third Bank, MBK, and then the Mentoring Collaborative in Dayton. So I recommend approval of those MOUs. There is no money expected from the Dayton Public Schools on any of these MOUs.
I move that we recommend recommendations E, F, G, H, I, and J in one vote. Do I have a second?
I second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions?
One question.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Goodwin.
On I, the date is from May 9th to 2022 through May 7th, 2023. Is that time frame correct?
It needs to be updated, yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sampson.
I just have a question under E, where it says, the party agrees as follows: the Dayton Public School Office for Culture Engagement and Inclusion will provide the following services to Central State University: train certified life coaches, mentors, and mentees that are dedicated to the life of scholarship. What does that mean? We're providing coaches to Central State?
No, we're training hours.
Get-
Yes, we're training hours.
Okay.
I thought the same thing, and I
Okay.
asked that question last year. That we're working towards having everyone recognize that in our program.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Any other questions? No other questions? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes?
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses. Carries. Next recommendation, please.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the clerical contract that is on the agenda, OPC Local 158.
I move to accept Superintendent Recommendation K. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions on the motion? If there are no questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes. Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses. Motion carries. Your next recommendation, please, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the agreement for OPC Local 643, our paraprofessionals.
So moved.
Been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions on the motion? There are none. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Your next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the referee, rejecting the referee's comments and approving termination for the staff member listed.
So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Do we have any questions on the motion? If not, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yep.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Your next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the settlement agreement for construction and trades.
Thank you. I move to accept Dr. Lally's superintendent recommendation N.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Do we have any questions? If there are none, may we have a vote, please?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Your next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the settlement agreement for the person listed.
So
So-
moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Are there any questions? There are no questions. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
That concludes my recommendations for this evening. Thank you.
You gotta refresh your
I'll
screen.
refresh. Oops, I got more. I got all those that you named, don't I?
Yes, ma'am.
Apologize for that, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, next recommendation is, I'd like to recommend the memorandum of understanding for the neighborhood school centers. I believe that in light of the board's conversation, that I should pull that recommendation. Because that would need to be updated.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that okay? All right. The next recommendation for me would be recommending the approval of following resolution regarding reimbursement to parents and guardians, and I'd like to read that if possible. Recommend the approval of regarding reimbursements to parents and guardians. Rationale is the Office of Transportation declaring it is impractical to transport some students to non-public schools, and we agreed to pay the parents or guardians of those pupils in lieu of providing such transportation, an amount which shall not exceed the state average cost to transport all pupils in the state the preceding year, fiscal year 21-22, pursuant to ORC Section 3327, State of Ohio Department of Education, and the Controlling Board.
I move to accept recommendation Q.
Second.
Me second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? If there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
Next recommendation?
I'd like to recommend the approval of the administrative salary schedule for the part-time academic coordinator.
I move to accept recommendation R.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions on the motion? There are none. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Do you have any other recommendations, Dr. Lally?
No, that concludes my recommendations for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lally. Madam Treasurer, your recommendations, please.
Okay. I have monthly financials for June. These financials were reviewed and by the Finance Committee last week, and were reviewed again with the board last week. So may I have your approval?
Move to accept treasurer's recommendation A.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? There are none. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Your next recommendation.
I recommend the approval of the following minutes. June-
Move to, go ahead. I'm sorry, Madam Treasurer.
June 6, June 14, June 21, June 28, and June 21 records retention meeting.
Move to accept treasurer recommendation B.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions? Not, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Next recommendation, please.
I recommend the approval of the donations as reviewed last week.
Move to accept treasurer recommendation C.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions? See, there are no questions. As always, I want to thank those that donate to our district, and your donation is much appreciated. If we have no other questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
Your next recommendation, please, Madam Treasurer.
I recommend the approval of the name now as reviewed last week.
I move to accept treasurer's recommendation D.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? There are no questions. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries. Your next recommendation, please, Madam Treasurer.
I recommend the approval of purchase requisitions as reviewed last week.
And we'll give a small moment if there are any questions for purchase requisitions from the board. And I move that we accept treasurer's recommendation E.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions on the motion? I see none. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
6 yeses.
6 yeses, motion carries.
That concludes my recommendations for tonight.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. And once again, I want to congratulate you and your team on the awards you received this evening.
Thank you.
Next, as we move over, first, I would like the record to show that Board Member Dr. Pickett is now in attendance. First business, Board Member Travel and Expense. I move to accept our Board Member Travel and Expense.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are any questions? There are none. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
7 yeses, passes. New business, we'll start down at the far end and go to Board Member Lacy.
Yeah, thanks. I don't really have anything. I'm gonna, I won't be able to come to convocation, but I am excited for the new year, and we're preparing as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Dr. Pickett, thank you for joining us. Do you have any new business?
I'm not sure, can I have just 5 more minutes?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Then we will kick it down over on this side. Ms. Witt Gagne.
I think, I covered things with my business this year. I mean, we've been working hard on the Welcome Stadium piece, and I'm super excited about that, continuing to develop that project for the season, and looking forward to a great new school year. I think that we have a lot of great momentum, and looking forward to doing some just deeper, more intentional work, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next year, next season. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Witt Gagne. Vice President Reiner.
Thank you. I have a few updates. First of all, I hope everybody is having a good summer break. I hope that the teachers, either they're taking a break or maybe they're doing some professional development, are doing well. I hope that our students are healthy and happy, and that they're getting some lovely vitamin D. It's been beautiful weather. Grateful to have my own kids at home. So I hope that everybody's summer break is going well. I want to flag a bit of concern that I have in terms of COVID rates. I have a child at home with COVID right now. I've been fairly vigilant about wearing a mask. I want to reinstate the importance of keeping in mind that COVID still exists and that it is still very transmissible. I had it back in May, and it was not fun, and I would like to re-up the importance of wearing a mask and being safe, especially as we approach the new school year. I want to make sure that we're keeping in mind everybody's health and safety as we approach the new school year. The second item that I have as an update is some really, really good news. We passed a resolution in support of extending the child nutrition waiver 2 months back. 2 months back, I believe. I'm very grateful for board agreement on that. We were one of the few districts that stepped up and passed a resolution, and I got the really good news after we passed that indeed it did pass and get extended. Congress provided USDA the authority to issue much-needed flexibility so that schools and meal program operators could continue to feed children. This was extended to the end of the school year in '23. I'm very, very, very grateful for our work, the work of our legislators in DC, and for their commitment to keep children fed and keep on giving them healthy meals. So very grateful to this board for that support, and grateful again for our legislators in DC. The last thing that I have to say is not easy for me to say. I was not here last week, and I was not here the week before, but I want to state for the record that I am deeply disappointed in the vote that occurred last week. It will be absolutely clear as to why I object to this decision and the way it was pushed through without public input. I have stated repeatedly that it is not about a person, but it is about the legal and ethical process that I am focused on. Board Policy BA, Board Operation Goals, says that a goal of this board is to conduct board business openly, soliciting and encouraging broad-based involvement in decision-making process by the public, students, and staff. How is holding these discussions in any way open and encouraging involvement in the decision-making process by the public? Board Policy BBA, School Board Power and Duties, states that one of this board's responsibilities are to inform the public about the progress and needs of the district and to solicit and weigh public opinion as it affects the district. What progress and needs of the district were communicated to the public about this position? I will be clear. I was out of town, and the superintendent was out of town when this special meeting was called, and I was even unaware until the meeting was broadcast and I watched it from out of town that the treasurer was not there. This was not an ordinary meeting and not an ordinary decision being considered. This is a radical change to the entire organization of Dayton Public Schools. I and another board member asked that in light of such a huge change to the district and a possible vote being held, that the meeting be rescheduled so that all board members and the superintendent and treasurer could fully participate in this meeting. I wasn't even aware until after I watched the meeting again that the treasurer was not in attendance. The meeting last week, when I was still not able to attend, was again held without the treasurer present. Why was this pushed through so quickly without the full board being present and without the treasurer even being part of the conversation? The very fact that it was rushed through as an open-ended resolution with a board member stating this has some fine-tuning to do is of great concern as to why it had to happen, why it had to be rushed through, and what fine-tuning can potentially mean. What other districts in Ohio have this position of business manager? Were they consulted with? What purpose does it serve in those districts? When we have been accused of administrative bloat, why are we creating another position that only adds to the administrative level? Why create this position when we already have the equivalent of a business manager already under the title of Chief of Operations? There's something else that I have grave concerns about as well. It is not entirely clear if the executive sessions the last 2 weeks were admissible under Sunshine Law. There is a legitimate argument to make that they were not. When faced with such a question, it is crystal clear to me that the board should have acted with extreme caution and behaved differently. I personally believe that Sunshine Law was violated. That is all I have to say.
Thank you, Vice President Reiner. Next, we'll move to Board Member Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I only have a few things. To the community, 21 more days, and we'll be back in full swing of academic success for the 22-23 school year. And second thing is, last week I made a recommendation regarding truancy coordinators, expanding that office because of the new bail schedule, transportation, and I just believe that we need to provide some added support and advocacy. And so I just wanted to know if there was an update, Dr. Lally, that you could share. What would be the next steps after that recommendation?
Yes, if it's the will of the board to increase that truancy staff, we would certainly do that. It would be my recommendation that we take a look at some innovative ways to do truancy, because I'm not sure that knocking on a few doors and bringing students in a few at a time is really what we need to do, as opposed to something that's more global and far-reaching. So do we need to look at something that's building-based with someone there that is like a connector for kids and automatically goes and looks? Our largest truancy issues are at our high schools. So I think that bears some need for us to actually explore some other options. So I'm happy to bring back some ideas for the August board meeting, and then the board can give me direction on if we want to move in that direction or not. I think the old style of truancy officers probably is not what we want, because we want to connect with students, connect with their families in a different way. And I'm not saying that to disparage processes in the past. I just think we have a different need now. So I'm happy to do that if that will be okay in August.
Yep. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
And last for me, Mr. President, is Montgomery County has gone back to high level as it relates to COVID transmission. So Dr. Lally, the question is, I know we did in the past, when we had the high level that masks became mandated, it was required. Have we gone back to that yet as it relates to making masks required back in the district buildings?
We have not.
Okay.
We plan on having the public health talk to the board in August.
All right.
And then at that point in time, we can have that conversation with a little more clarity, because we'll be the 16th start date, the 10th for the faculty, so.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Lally. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Dr. Pickett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, the ESL committee met last week, and we were just going over the numbers. I believe that we probably have the numbers up they're more updated than the ones that I had that day. And today, the policy committee meeting met today, and I do have a first reading. Inasmuch as the Board of Education is committed to the continuing updating of its policies, rules, and regulations, Manuel and the committee, which was appointed, has been working towards a goal. The following are brought at this time for first reading in compliance with Board File BFC policy adoption. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education and the Dayton City School District, Montgomery County, Ohio, hereby accepts and adopts the following policies that have been codified for inclusion in the Handbook of Policies, Rules, and Regulations. File AC-ACB, non-discrimination harassment, including non-discrimination on the basis of sex and disability, sexual harassment, revised to better meet the district needs. AC-R-2, sexual harassment complaint procedures, revised to better meet the district needs. BBF-E, board member ethics, also revised to meet the district needs. And DFA, revenues for investment, revised to better meet the district needs. These policies are being read for the first time. As such, a motion or second is not required. The policies will be available in the superintendent's office for review and comment prior to their second reading and adoption by the Board of Education. Furthermore, the policies will be reviewed by the superintendent's office, the board's office, and the legal department of the Dayton Public Schools prior to the second reading. And that is all I have today, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pickett. Dr. Goodwin.
I have several things today. First, tomorrow I will be back here at 6 o'clock, just opening up the discussion on athletic eligibility and what we can do to better support our children in closing that gap in academics, as well as keeping them connected to athletics. And the goal of this conversation, because that's all it is, it's a conversation, is just to really continue to hear different thoughts about what we're currently doing and how we can improve it. We currently aren't hitting the mark, in my opinion, of how best we can serve our children, as well as keeping them engaged in our district. And it's not just in athletics, but we're starting the conversation with athletics. I plan to do more conversations to invite individuals in to just really weigh in. And I'm really looking for parents and individuals who have children or know families in this district who are impacted by these policies and how you guys can help us shape these into the next level. The second thing I have is piggybacking on the policies that were just read for the first read, and I really want to talk about them right now at the board level, mainly because I have some concerns regarding, and I'll just start with the sexual harassment policy. And there's a clause in here that states that, let's see, pretty much a board member in good faith can cause an investigation against another board member. It doesn't read exactly like that, but that is implied by this policy. And my concern with that is that if two of us have a disagreement with each other, we can now weaponize policy to drain district resources when, if there is an actual disagreement with us, we all have legal remedies outside of here that doesn't take away from funding that comes from this district. And I asked this question at the policy meeting of who's paying for an investigator when one of us, because good faith is it's like it's saying, if you believe it happened, you can bring it forth. So my question, and just starting the conversation with the board on this one and some other ones, on your thoughts on the cost that comes with us creating a policy to where now, even though the results of that investigation doesn't necessarily create some type of remedy for a person, because we're not employees, we don't have the same right, we're not protected under the same thing, but we could potentially utilize several of these policies that are coming up that are including us against one another to cause a drain on the finances here when we have additional remedies outside of here when we do have a true dispute. So I'm interested in anybody's thoughts on, if you guys, if you haven't read it, and if you're looking on board docs, the policies are listed also under Dr. Pickett, as well as the ones I'm talking about right now are under my name. And I just got this earlier at 3:30, so I also didn't have a full day to review it, but I did see those ones. So if you guys have any thoughts?
Vice President Reiner.
So to bring the public up to speed, this is a conversation that started several months ago. We were reviewing the sexual harassment policy, and we realized that there was a bit of a gap, and we compared it to other districts across the state. We looked at, I believe it was Akron and Cincinnati and Columbus, and realized that it's not about creating a weapon. It is about holding ourselves to the high standard that we expect our DPS employees and staff. We should hold ourselves to the same standard. And not having board members included in these policies is a real dereliction of our responsibilities and holding ourselves to accountability. And that's what a lot of the conversation was about. Dr. Pickett, as chair of that committee, did you want to add anything?
All I would add is that this is the year 2022, and this is something that has been adopted by several school districts, and all we're doing is just following suit with every other organization that might have a board. That's all I have to say.
And if we could, we had council at the meeting.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk to the board members about their thoughts on it. I don't actually need our council, because this is, at the end of the day, actually, if you can confirm, there's no actual remedy that could occur if, like employees, is there something you can do to a board member? If you violate a policy, you do an investigation, is there an actual remedy that could happen from the district to the board?
Well, I'd like to
Mr. Schaller?
I hesitate to provide legal advice in an open public
Absolutely.
meeting. But, you know, there are, at the end of the day, it is very difficult to remove a board member from a board seat, if that's your question.
Is it essentially, because I'm looking at, and I think Mr. Lacy has something to say, I'm looking at us, I just don't want us to drain the district's resources in the event that you take a policy to use against another board member when we have other remedies outside of here. Like, if you are truly sexually harassed, I do believe that's a serious thing. And I do believe you have remedies at this point for you to move forward with that. And my question for us is, who's paying for our investigations, guys? But Mr. Lacy had a thing, that's all.
Mr. Lacy?
Well, I mean, in reference to, if we're talking about BBF-E, there's some serious errors in it, I believe. I mean, when you, in the red section, and I'm guessing the red section is what's to be added to the policy. It states additionally, blah, 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 it will be inappropriate for any board member to, number 6 and 7, I think that it's intended that fail to should be in front of those things. Otherwise, you're saying it'd be inappropriate for a board member to refer issues requiring administrative action to the appropriate school district authority or district authority. Or it would be inappropriate to refrain from actions that would encroach on assigned responsibilities. I think those were meant to say fail to in front. You've got a lot of negatives in these things. But that's all I have.
To follow up with what Board Member Lacy was speaking on, I would with BBFE, just if we're having a conversation, to have that conversation with more board members. I don't know who all, it may have been all three from the not ethics, but policy committee looking at that. I do think that as a board, it is things or conversations that we should have about what do we want to see as we work together. I do think that there are, to Dr. Goodwine's points, if we look at some of these, there are things also, look at number 5, fail to be honest with colleagues, district personnel, other board members, constituents, and other interested parties. Where is that then? How are we judging it? How do I know that every member of the board said something honest or dishonest to someone? Which one failed to use appropriate decorum? Like some of these things I think should have conversations, and actually then how do we then know that those things happen? How do we govern that? How do we, how am I able to be in a conversation or see when someone came up to me, or how would I judge if someone came to me and said, hey, I heard from a board member XYZ, and it would be incorrect, but how do I know that that person is being truthful as well? So I do have some concerns with there, and I do think that I appreciate the work of the policy committee. I think that's something that came up earlier in this year where, as the board, we did want to say we want some of these things to be worked through policy and then come here. but I definitely think some of these could be either looked at policy or to really work through it, or have some conversations with the board level to see how we do some of those things. Are there any other questions or comments on what Dr. Goodwin raised? And so I will kick it back to you, Dr. Goodwin. I know you have said some more things, but I do think, to your point of making sure we aren't, which in any aspect, I wouldn't want to make policies that weaponize against, first and foremost, our students, our staff, or anyone in the district as well. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I appreciate the work of the policy committee. Back to you, Dr. Goodwin.
Yep, that's pretty much it for me today. I'm gonna see some people out here tomorrow. I thank you all for coming. As always, Ms. Ryan, I enjoy when you come out and talk to us. You have a better record than I do of attending these things, and I aspire to be like you. And your feedback is always something that I personally take into account with action. So thank you for constantly and consistently being here. And thank you to the staff. You guys should be excited. It's before 8 o'clock. We like at the end here. Y'all feel it. I feel it in energy too. So I'm happy about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goodwin. Madam Treasurer.
I just want to say thank you for those, for DPS families and my family, everybody, for all the flowers, all the cards, all the get well wishes gave me, and I just want to let them know I am improving and I'm doing great. That's it.
Dr. Lally?
Well, first thing I'd like to do is to recognize that Greg Taylor, one of our wonderful employees in our information technology department, has taken a job with the Ohio Department of Ed. And he will be leaving as of tomorrow. And I just want to thank him for his work that he's done with our IT department, with our assessment and accountability departments, and just being there for every building administrator, every teacher, and for everyone in the central office. Because anytime we need data, for example, student data, we contact Greg and he has it to us. So it'll be a great loss to the school system, but he's moving there because of his family is there, and they need to get closer to his family at this point in time. But I want to thank him publicly for everything that he's done. He's been a great employee. He was a teacher at Thurgood Marshall STEM High School before, and then moved to the central office, and he'll do a great job for the Ohio Department of Ed. But their gain is definitely our loss. So I just want to thank him publicly and let him know that he will be missed. We had principal retreats on Thursday and Friday last week. The principal team, assistant principals and principals were energized. It was a great 2 days, seeing everyone and having everyone back together. And it was just a very, very great start to them returning to school this year. So we were pumped to begin the school year, and it was just really 2 good days of work, focus, and refreshing and renewing our commitment to our students. So I'm looking forward to seeing the good work that they each can do. And then lastly, congratulations, well, not lastly, but congratulations to Treasurer and her department for their award. It's something that I know that the Treasurer has worked very hard over the last several years and this year to make sure that she was able to attain that and for the district and then also for her team, so congratulations. Earlier, before school let out in May, the Ohio Department of Education contacted us because of our test results and indicated that they would like for us to be the subject of a film video that they were making on their Moving Ohio Forward series. And we are the first school district that they actually did a video on. They came to Fairview Elementary School, videotaped our double teaching model there. And the reason that they chose Dayton Public was because of the test results that we were showing both on the OST and then also on our MAP assessments, which are the nationally normed local assessments that we use. So at this time, I'd like to have Alex show that for the public and have everyone take a look at the great work that our staff and our students are doing in the Dayton Public Schools.
Preschool Promise is helping families in Montgomery County find and pay for high-quality preschool.
Yeah, it's the right one, just, can you take it back to the beginning? Oh. Yes, I was not talking about Preschool Promise.
I like your red suit though, looks good. Preschool's always a wrong. That was from Karen.
Can you take it all the way back? There you go. There we go. And they released this, I think a week and a half ago to the state.
Going from 92 to 100. I don't know if that'll make a difference.
Testing.
Would you mind? I think being featured for this is a great way to start the year. I think it's a great motivation for our staff and a great motivation for those double teachers.
Improve communication using your Clever Touch screen. The Clever Message app works for you from the moment it's turned on. You can broadcast live webcam morning address.
Should have just rolled out the whole AV.
I want to just look on our own screen.
Put a link there.
I'm sorry. Is it playing online for people watching online? No, it's just static online.
Let's just give them a link. Go. And go 8 o'clock, we'll all go watch it together. Everybody watch it.
It's okay. We'll just, Are you getting it right now? Okay.
Like that determination.
The problem that we saw was a decrease in academic achievement. Our students were remote for over a year, and while they had quality remote instruction is not the same as in-person, face-to-face instruction and that immediate opportunity for intervention or enrichment. One of the things that we decided to do whenever we received the American Recovery Act money, we decided to put it towards having 2 teachers in every first grade, second grade, third grade classroom. A teacher focuses in on the literacy aspect, or a teacher focuses in on the math. And by doing that, we had a class size reduction model that occurred. So we hired about 100 teachers, put them inside the same classroom, and they teach together. The other thing that we did was we put in paraprofessionals in every 2 kindergarten classrooms, so we would also have class size reduction there and be able to focus and intervene quickly. We focus on reading and math because if a child can learn to read and write and actually do mathematics early on, that opens the door for all of the content areas when they reach 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, where it really becomes very, very stringent and content-based. Our students actually are able to hear better, participate more, and they actually are able to focus in because they're in a smaller group, they aren't distracted, and they're able to have that teacher attention more readily and much more quickly than if they're in a class of 22, 24 students at a time. That teacher can actually go right to them immediately whenever they have a question or concern, and the teacher actually stands right in front of the 10 to 12 students that they teach in that small group.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Dr. Lally. New business, we had an athletic advisory council meeting last week. We have new council members on there that are coaches from the district. As Dr. Goodwine mentioned about her conversation that she'll be having here tomorrow, that's one of the things that we really dove into as a council is how do we really look at the whole eligibility piece, and not just from just what is the GPA standard, but what are we doing? What are we doing around study tables? What are we doing around mentorship? What are we doing around tracking students throughout the whole year? You know, so we really wanted to look at that and understanding that it's a big conversation because I'll be frank, we're the district in this area that gets looked at for that. And when we look at where we are, this district had a standard before that was raised by the board, but the old standard was still higher than what the state of Ohio requires schools. The standard was still at a level that other districts, suburban districts, have for their students. So that's one of the things that happens with our district is that whatever we do gets magnified. So when other districts have a 1.0, no one says a thing about it. And so then you have a situation where you have some districts where, we'll be honest, live in more affluent areas, have a lot of issues that you do not see in urban environments, and yet have a lower threshold for participation in extracurricular activities. In our district, we get a larger spotlight on those kind of things. So the question was brought up to the team there is what do we do? And how do we do it and be in a position where we're not setting some low bar? Because that is what gets said a lot, is that when we have too low of a GPA standard, then we're letting our students just come in and do whatever. But we also then looked at data and showed that suburban districts that outperform us academically have lower standards. So then we're looking at a system where districts that have resources, family resources, community resources, also have that, what we would say in our district, in our community, a low bar. But no one says that those districts are out there trying to create a low floor. So we're looking at how do we create opportunities for our students. To be honest, the state right now says to be athletically eligible, you have to be passing 5 one credit course classes. The equivalent of that is, if you look now, our students take 7 classes. So the state says they could have 5 Ds and 2 Fs and play. Other districts around here have that same standard, and no one looks at them and says they're setting their children up to fail. In fact, people leave and go to these districts and say, I'm setting my students up to succeed. So we looked at that and said, okay, what do we do around not only the GPA, but what policies and procedures? How are we giving supports? How are we getting more students involved in extracurricular activities? Because there are some students who, without some of those extracurriculars, they don't come to school at all. But then there are other students who have 4 years that we've seen, if you do not have the policies and procedures and help needs there, they may be eligible, say, for football, but then they're not coming to school the rest of the year because they don't. So how are we then looking and really wrapping everybody together? And I appreciate that council because it's principals on there, there are site coordinators on there, there are coaches on there, there are people who are invested in our students. And so it's not just we want to just go out there and let everyone play, but what are we doing to get children engaged in school, get them around mentors, get them some of the disciplinary tools that they'll learn. Just build up our students, and I appreciate Dr. Goodwine and Ms. Board Member Witt Gagne for being on that committee with me, and that's something we've been wrestling with, is looking at how do we do that. I want to say another thing that we looked at was how to increase the offerings of sports in our schools, which reaches to an equity issue as well. You know, I will say 2 of our new associate athletic directors have come in, and if you've seen some of the work they have online and some of the graphics there, it's been amazing to see them really reaching out. So we're looking at adding, I want to say, wrestling for our young ladies. Boys volleyball and bowling at every school in the district too. So we're looking at adding offerings to people, having, every kid isn't just wanting to come to play football, basketball, or run track. But how do we find a kid who wants to bowl, who wants, or a young lady who wants to wrestle? And then also looking that as we add these are scholarship opportunities for our children. These are scholarship opportunities. These are opportunities for them to just find something that's a niche. And as we look around our district, it is abundantly clear that the highest performing schools offer things for students to be involved. If you look at our highest performing high school, every day each student comes to school knowing that they will do at least one thing that day that they absolutely love doing. And so it is on our end as a council is looking at how do we find those kind of things for other students? How does a student get to wake up in the morning and know I'm coming to school, and no matter what bumps in the road my day, I know I'm going to have this thing that I really love guide me through. So that's been something we've been talking about, and we'll be talking about it more next month. And I really just appreciate that conversation, and I really appreciate the depth of it. And if you have any ideas, questions, reach out. Reach out on what you think some things could be, because that is what we really need. Secondly, I've had some conversations with people around the district just about going back to school. And when I say the district, just when we're out. People are really, really, really excited. Some parents, count myself in there because I have 2 students at home. But I really want to say I appreciate all the work that goes into the beginning of a school year and getting our kids off. And I talked about it earlier, and it expands to more than just teachers. But like I said, being in an urban district is not like being anywhere else. It is not like it's a job. You have to really love doing this to really come in and deal with some of the things that you have to see in an urban environment, dealing with some of the backgrounds that goes on. One of the things that if you look in the summer, look at just the news. You've had shootings. You've had people recklessly driving. You've had a family torn apart, a mother and child shot. There was a shooting just in an auto parts store. These are the kind of things, and if you extrapolate the stories from it, those are the children that come to our schools every day. Those are the parents that are in our district. These are the situations we see. These are the things that a second, third grade teacher that is trying to teach a kid how to read and write and do math, they're also dealing with a kid coming to school traumatized from these kind of things that happen in their environment. So I really appreciate the work that's going into, have been talked about some of those things, and I really just want to say I appreciate every one of you in our district. There's no job that is too small. Everybody matters in this district. Lastly, I want to say that I appreciate Ms. Ryan and anyone else that comes down. Please come. I really do appreciate hearing from our public, and I think it's something that we don't get to do enough of. You know, people see us and, you know, in passing and things like that. But please come down, because I think as a board, we may disagree at times, but one thing that I do love, and a board member brought it up to me recently, and I appreciated her for this, is we understand that we all come from different backgrounds, and we have a piece that we know from our communities. There is a piece that we know from our communities, and we bring those here, and it's all for moving forward. Lastly, I want to say that it is a wonderful week in our district when our superintendent is on a state video and our treasurer is getting a state award. So, I mean, that still underscores the work that is being done in here, the momentum that we have going on in this district. We're, you know, opening up a new building. That is no small feat. To see some of the students that are encouraged about going to the International School at Residence Park. I was over in Residence Park a couple of weeks ago with Hubert, and just seeing, he got up on the stage and spoke to the neighborhood and said, hey, we're reopening Residence Park. And they just gave him this applause. And then you'd have thought he was on the pulpit, because he said, you know, he talked about what they were doing. And it was a neighborhood kind of concert, but then he talked about how the international aspect was there. And he talked about how it's a school for all of us to learn from each other. And I mean, he said, because it's our building, and we're all up under this, and we're all gonna make this work. And he stayed in that neighborhood and handed out flyers and talked to people. And I mean, it just showed the work of what goes on and moves. So I just wanted to commend him for that, and just to note the things that are moving forward. Lastly, I've been working with Dr. Lally on her convocation speech. So it's gonna be fire. It's gonna be fire, and we'll be ready for that. So I want to appreciate everybody in the district. Let's keep working. Let's keep being vigilant. Like Vice President Reiner said, numbers have gone up. It is a serious thing. We do not want to play with that. The last thing we want to do is have to shut schools down again. That is the last thing we want to do. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It is moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved in second. I see no questions. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wigani,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Meeting adjourned. Be safe.
What you want to